Hi and welcome back to my video blog. Once again, excellent to see you all here. I am truly blessed and amazed by the attention that you guys are giving my blog. It's really great. I do appreciate all the feedback I'm getting. So please keep doing that and keep sending all your questions in, and trust me, I'll do my absolute best to answer them for you. So, what are we going to speak about today? Well, I have been getting some questions about my view on the benefits of practicing with flight simulators and flying for virtual airlines and logging those types of hours, and whether or not that will help towards getting into aviation training and ultimately getting a job. I would say that there are a couple of things that you should be thinking about when it comes to this. First of all, the flight simulators that are available today are absolutely amazing, and seen as a hobby, it's great. I do understand people that sitting and taking part in virtual airlines, flying all over the world to kind of try to live out the dreams a little bit, and they are really realistic. When it comes to the knowledge that you gain by, for example, reading up on manuals, FCOM 2 manuals for the type that you're flying, no one can take that away from you. The knowledge that you gain by studying manuals, trying to understand it, and then apply it to the systems in your flight simulator, seeing how it works, how the button you're pushing interacts with the flight mode enunciation, how different automatics works. No one can take that away from you. The knowledge that you gain from reading up and then practicing in the simulator is yours, and it's yours to keep. Okay, so that's point one. Point two is when it comes to actually applying company procedures. I know that there is a big flora of company procedures available online, different companies, different SOPs. You can probably find variants of all of them if you Google them. I am going to put a little bit of a caution note on here, and the reason is that I have during my career done quite a lot of training of pilots coming from one airline to our airline. The biggest problem they tend to face is readapting from one set of procedures to a new set of procedures. Now, the benefit that these guys have is that they have actual flight experience on the type, but they still have problems trying to get certain procedures from one airline out of their system, out of their motoric memory, and reapplying new procedures to the same aircraft. So it's really hard. It's kind of like when you've learned to do something on a phone or whatever, and then you get the same kind of phone, but then you have to do everything that you've done in a different way. You will always, under stress especially, revert back to the old way you used to do things. It's exactly the same when you're changing companies, but you're doing it with the same procedures. Sorry, with the same aircraft. So, what I'm trying to say with this is that if you are spending a lot of time learning procedures that you found on internet, and actually flying flights point to point using those procedures, maybe you're even using call-outs and so on, that will get stuck in your head. But you won't have the actual experience, the actual flight experience to fall back on. Which means that if you're doing this to a huge extent, as in we're talking hundreds of hours in front of the simulator now, which I've heard people do, then once it's time for you to do an actual type rating, you might have the same problem as these guys that have experience from other airlines, but you won't have the experience. So be very careful with doing too much of this, because it will actually get stuck in your mind. So I'm just putting a little bit of a caution note. However, the technical knowledge that you've gained, like I said before, will probably put you a little bit ahead of the rest of the pack. So the technical knowledge is great. Procedural knowledge could be in your way when it comes to actually doing a type rating for an airline. When it comes to actually talking about this with professionals in the airline industry, as in when you're doing interviews for a school or when you're doing interviews for an airline or whatever, I would probably keep the mentioning of how many flight hours you have in a flight simulator or in a virtual airlines to an absolute minimum. Now, why is this? Well, if you put yourself in their position, there will be people from personnel interviewing you for the job. Now, people from personnel, they are typically not pilots. They're not really interested in flying. They're personnel people. They just want to find the right kind of personality for the job. Now, if you put yourself in their shoes and say that you are going to hire, someone to mow your lawn or whatever, which one would you choose? Would you choose the guy who just have a natural way of cutting your lawn perfectly, as in it looks like he's done it before, but he hasn't mentioned anything about it, it just seems like he's a natural? Or would you choose the guy who said that he has actually spent hundreds of hours on a lawnmower simulator, connecting himself to other people who's mowing lawns, discussing how to mow lawns in the most effective ways, and spent most of his free time doing so? Just ask yourself that question. It's from people that doesn't understand what it's like to be truly bitten by aviation. It can look a bit fanatic to have spent logged hundreds of hours in front of a computer game. So I would, when you speak to people in the industry, even with professional pilot, keep it to a minimum. Just use the advantage that you've built up by applying the technical knowledge that you have. You don't have to say where it comes from. You just use it. The same when it comes to the type rating. No one can take away the knowledge that you've gained. You will just be able to show off that you have a lot of knowledge, but you don't have to actually spell out that you've spent that much time in front of a computer game. That's at least my advice to anyone who's doing this. By all means, use it. I've used it myself after my instrument rating when I wanted to keep myself fluent and I wanted to keep myself current with my instrument procedures. I used it. I used to fly VOR holdings and NDB holdings and approaches just to kind of refresh how to do things. So it's perfectly usable, but you could keep it a little bit low key, especially if you have done it a lot. Okay. Now, I am going to go on vacation now for 2 weeks. I'll be in Thailand and I won't be logging any more videos for a while. So when I come back, I'm going to start continuing with my videos, be sure of that. So in the meantime, I want to ask you to send in suggestions about what you want me to cover. Do you want me to, for example, explain a little bit about my own background? In that case, just write that and send me a message. You can send it on Instagram or you can send it here on YouTube. Or if you want me to go in a different direction, if you want me to talk more about technical details or stuff like that, I can do that as well. But during these 2 weeks, I want you guys to send in your comments. If you like this, if you want me to change in any way, tell me. Because it's the only way that I can kind of build up this and make this channel for you, which it's all about. I want you guys to be happy with it. But for now, I am going to go and pour myself a great little drink and start my vacation. See you.